Hey, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Monster Monday, the first Monster Monday of 2021. Today is January 4th, 2021, and I am your host, DM Gallibond. And tonight, friends, we are going somewhere we have never been before in Monster Monday. We have been to the past, looking at old editions of D&D and seeing how monsters have evolved to the present. We have even crossed IPs within Wizards of the Coast and gone and looked at monsters that started in Magic the Gathering and have come to D&D. But tonight, we are going to the world of podcasting. The world of podcasting for a monster. That's right. Tonight, for the first time, because it's come up now in the alphabetical order we're doing things, for the first time, we are going to be exploring a monster from Critical Role that came out of Matt Mercer's twisted little brain. We are going to be looking at the Aeorian Absorber. The Aeorian Absorber. Well, if you're not familiar with the uh, Explorer's Guide to Wild Mountain book, source book that was published for D&D either at the end of 2019 or during last year. If you're not familiar with that book, and if you live under a rock and you've never heard of Critical Role, shame on you, then you may not know what we are talking about here. So let's go ahead and jump right on into that show. After we say thank you, as always, to Mo over at tabletopbellhop.com. He has included us in the galaxy of his shows about tabletop games. And so we appreciate that he's done that. And if you want any information about any kind of tabletop game, whether it's a party game, card game, RPG, whatever, you can go over to Moe's at tabletopbellhop.com and you can find industry news. You can find reviews of outcoming or up and coming games. You can find news about developers. You can find people playing games on podcasts and streams. You can find analysis and all kinds of rules discussions and anything that you want about all those kinds of games over at the Tabletop Bellhop. So please go check them out. All right. The Aeorian Absorber. What the hell is this thing? Well, it looks like, from its physical appearance, it looks like a mommy beholder and a daddy displacer beast. Uh, They they loved each other very much, and they had a very special hug. And the Aeorian Absorber was what came out of it. But no. That's not what happened at all. Although it resembles some sort of canine or feline quadruped at a distance, the absorber's monstrous nature becomes quickly apparent as it closes in. Named for its ability to draw magical energy into its body, the absorber can release that energy in devastating blasts through its tail, whose eye is constantly on the lookout for prey. Ooh, ooh, that's just kind of weird. So, what are Aeorian absorbers and where the hell did they come from? Aeorian absorbers are one of three types of creatures known as Aeorian hunters. Each one was created by the ancient mages of Aeor for a particular purpose to defeat the enemies of their creators. And specifically, the Aeorian Absorber can redirect magical damage from spells back at the caster if the caster is within range of its tail ray. or yeah, tail ray. So this is something that already I don't even have to see your faces, and I can already see the gears turning in your little minds where you're thinking, ooh, as DMs, you're thinking, how can I use this? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that later, of course. All right, what is the creature type? Well, whatever Matt Mercer intended when he said, all right, wizards, we're going to publish this, he had to realize that Wizards was going to assign a creature type to everything. And this one they decided should be a monstrosity. They're monsters in the strictest sense, frightening creatures that are not ordinary, not natural, almost never benign. Some are the result of magical experimentations gone awry. Hey, Aeorian Absorber. And others are the product of terrible curses, including Minotaurs and Yuan-Ti. They defy categorization, and in some sense serve as a catch-all category for creatures that don't fit into any other type. All right, now the Aeorian Absorber. What are its mechanical features and its characteristics? So let's go ahead and let us take a look at this. Oh, yes, of course. And of course, you're going to be fiddly fump. Okay. All right. Technical issues. All right. What I am looking at is I am looking at the Critical Role fan wiki. So criticalrole.fandom.com/wiki, and the entry for Aeor, which is the civilization whence the Aeorian Absorber comes. So Aeor was a pre-calamity floating city that crashed into Isolcross, currently being excavated by a few outposts and the ancient relics to be found there. And basically, it talks a little bit about the fragments of Aeor that are known to be within crash sites um, on Isolcross. The bulk of it crashed in the island of Foreign and Isolcross. Large and small sections of it broke off during its descent and are scattered in various locations across the island. Some of them have been mapped and others um, and explored. Others have yet to be found. There's the Cognusa Ward. Leaders of that ward were called the Somnoven. They orchestrated Cognusa's escape from the destruction of Aeor and wish now to return. And they betrayed Aeor to ensure their survival. And then we have a little bit of history about it. Long ago, massive flying city-state of Aeor was a place of invention and magic ruled by mages and considered one of the most powerful of the pre-calamity arcane societies. Held aloft by Broomstone, the bluish stone used in skyships with the property of being easily enchanted to lift. They grow powerful enough to create weapons capable of killing even the gods. Oh, yes. And so that's why when you, as a mortal, are foolish enough to build a weapon that can kill the gods, not only the prime gods, but also the betrayal gods, they will gang up and they will teach your sorry butt a lesson. And that's what happened to Aeor. The prime deities and the betrayer gods just said, no. Smack. And, well, that was the end of Aeor. It was long believed to have been obliterated and its location forgotten. However, artifacts and relics have been discovered. And now people are starting to say, oh, what other fragments of Aeor might be out there? And then there's obviously it's kind of figured into part of the show. I believe it was the second season of believe it was second season of Critical Role where Aeor became part of the plot, or touched on the plot in some way. And the fauna, notably the fauna that comes from Aeor, are the three types of creatures that survive, which are the Aeorian hunters, among those being the Aeorian Absorber. Well, now that we know kind of what it looks like and we kind of know where it came from, well, let's take a look at the stat block of this thing. Aeorian Absorber, it's a CR10 monster. Armor class 15, natural armor 171 hit points. Pretty good stat block except for its intelligence. And its charisma is not great. Yeah, charisma is a little bit below average. Intelligence is just, uh, it's kind of yeah, like borderline intelligent, I guess. Um, and it had to be borderline intelligence because its creator spoke Draconic, and they imbued it with the ability to understand Draconic, but it cannot speak Draconic itself. Absorber has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and it has a pounce movement when it moves in a straight line, and it can knock an opponent prone. Multi attacks, one with its bite or mind bolt, and two with its claws. And then um, those claws are 1d10 plus, or the bite is 1d10 plus 5. The claws are 1d6 plus 5. The mind bolt is 4d10 psychic damage. So piercing and slashing and psychic. And then it has that tail ray, where that little eye comes from. When the Absorber takes damage from a spell, the Absorber takes only half the triggering damage. And if the spellcaster is within 60 feet, the Absorber can force the spellcaster to make a DC 16 dexterity saving throw, and unless the saves succeed, the caster takes the other half of the damage. Now, it doesn't specify what type of damage this is. So I would submit that if you send fire damage at the Aeorian Absorber, it's going to come back at you as fire damage. Radiant damage sent at it will come back as radiant. Necrotic will come back as necrotic, and so on and so forth. So that kind of makes the eye a little bit like something where when I'm talking about reskinning it a little bit later on, you'll see where this idea starts to come from. All right. Description. Well, that's the same description we read before. Now, Aeorian Hunters. This is about all three types. So this description applies to the monster we're looking at tonight, as well as the monsters we'll be looking at coming up, since they are all Aeorian, all different types of Aeorian hunters. So they're brought to life by mages in the flying city of Aeor. They were created to take on angels, demons, devils, fae, and the gods themselves. And many of these magically mutated monstrosities survived the crash into Eiselcross. Now they stalk Aeor's ruins in the island's icy wastes. So they were created through arcane experimentation on beasts and humanoids, both captives and volunteers. Ooh. They resulted in monstrosities with brightly colored flesh and the power to resist and destroy Aeor's enemies. Theorized that these mages must have possessed some means of controlling their monstrous soldiers, but no such device has yet been found in the wastes of Eiselcross. Okay, if you're running a campaign in Wildemount, hey, there you go. There's a possible little way to dangle a hook for your characters. Draconic was the language used by these mages to train and bind the Aeorian hunters, and the hunters retain an understanding of this language even though they can't speak it. Madness through immortality. They do not age. As such, the lust for violence their creators instilled in their minds has grown ravenous after centuries without war. Most immediately attack any creature they can see. So, yeah, they're very bloodthirsty, very violent. Never harm another hunter. So, they won't attack other Aeorian absorbers, but not only the absorbers, but the things like the Aeorian nullifier and the Aeorian reverser, they won't attack those either. Ageless memories. Now, here's a really cool little piece of lore. If your characters can figure out how to get at it, and if you are the kind of DM that has enough, you know, random tables or just is quick enough to develop things on the fly. I'm kind of the random table person myself. I need that as just kind of a reference. If I don't know, it's kind of I aspire to be the improvisational type of DM. I'm not there yet. Each Aeorian hunter has perfect recall of every experience since the moment of its creation. Their limited intellects and desire for violence prevent them from effectively communicating, but each hunter holds a wealth of knowledge, often including the location of rare Aeorian relics inside its mind. Adventurers, all you have to do is try to figure out how to tease that information out. So, there you go. And they're perfect soldiers. They don't require food or drink because of their immortality. And what look at something from Wildemount would be complete without actually going to the source book, Explorer's Guide to Wildemount? And I have chosen to look at Islecross, since that is where you will find, um, that's the native habitat at the present time in the story of Wildemount, in the story of Critical Role. This is the place where you currently will find the Aeorian Absorber. So far north, west of Wildemount is a collection of imposing islands of ice, danger, and powerful forgotten relics called Islecross and the Graying Wildlands. And so the um, the main island here is this island of what the heck did they say? Okay, starts with an F, but they don't list it here, I don't think. They list the names of all of the other. Foreign, there it is. Foreign. It looks like it's the name of a city, but it's really the name of the island. Okay, so Foreign is the name of the island there. That's where it crashed. And they give you suggested encounters when you are adventuring in Islecross. And as you can see, the Islecross encounters level 5 through 10. An Aeorian Absorber ambushes the characters. And it says, see Chapter 7, but that just goes over the stat block for it. It doesn't really tell us anything that we haven't seen before. All right, so that is our information about the creature and where it has come from. Let us go back to our PowerPoint, and we will continue to look at the Aeorian Absorber and how you might use this in encounters. My goal is to always try to think of a way to create a hard encounter, which theoretically is supposed to tax the player some, but unless they just have really horribly bad luck on their rolls, or if they just make the least effective decisions possible, a hard encounter usually will not wind up killing the party. For a level 5 party, it is a hard encounter that borders on being deadly. So it's right up there near the edge of or the threshold of being a deadly encounter. At level 6 and 7, throwing an Aeorian Absorber at the party is a hard challenge. You don't need to add anything to it. Now, at level 8 and 9, it becomes a medium challenge. And if we're thinking about using other monstrosities, which I always like to do, you can add one Banderhob. And Banderhob is kind of a, well, it's kind of a oh, what the hell? I'm drawing a blank on their name. I'm not thinking of the grung. I'm thinking of the other uh, frog-like humanoids. The ones that you find in yeah. The name will come to me in a minute. But anyway, so it's a larger version of one of those, much tougher, much meaner, and it can swallow people whole. So using the level 8 and level 9. If you add a Banderhob to a level 9 to an encounter against a level 9 party with one of these Aeorian Absorbers, that gives you a couple of monsters that do some pretty interesting things. You know, this thing shooting back, reflecting back magic at them, and the other one potentially going and swallowing one of the characters and taking it off the battlefield. So yeah, that could be a fun little thing for you as a DM. And at level 10 to 13, an Aeorian Absorber is an easy encounter. For a level 13 party, you can make that a hard challenge by adding a second Aeorian Absorber and by throwing in a pair of adult Kuthrix. Adult Kuthrix they're not the toughest things in the world. They're not anywhere near as tough as the Aeorian Absorbers are. But they are horrifying little, you know, monster insect type things with four legs. I think the inspiration, in fact, it would not surprise me if the inspiration for um, the Kuthrik came out of that uh, uh, movie where it's not Guardians of the Galaxy, because that was the Marvel, and it wasn't Galaxy Quest because that was the parody. But it was the other thing where they were all soldiers and they were fighting these um, insect-like aliens, and they're kind of were going off. I think it had a young Denise Richards in it, and it had a bunch of other people in there as well. Um, I want to say Val Kilmer might have been in it, but I may be mixing that up. I can't remember what it was called, but that was a film that was very popular back in the day, and um, it had a bunch of these like little kind of small body, big chitinous leg things that were just going all over, and there's these big single claws on the end of each leg, and that's what they would wind up, doing a lot of the damage either to the spaceships or to the human or other sentient enemies that they were fighting, is by just sticking one of those big, huge claws through them. That's kind of what the Kuthrix look like in D&D. And I don't think they're quite that big. I think they're kind of like waist high on a human. But that big claw still do a lot of hurting to you. So throwing a couple of the Aeorian Absorbers and a couple of those Kuthrix at a party of 13th level, yeah, that kind of keep them busy a little bit. All right. So, where would you put the Aeorian Absorber in a campaign? Well, the obvious and the unimaginative answer to that is that you're just going to completely co-opt everything that Matt Mercer has done, and you are going to set your campaign in Wild Amount. Now, having said that, Matt Mercer's an incredibly creative DM, genius when it comes to telling stories, and he's created an enthralling and wonderful and great world. So, it's not a bad thing to set it in Wild Amount, but, you know, in some ways, what's the fun of using a monster in the place that it's supposed to be? Why not take it and put it somewhere else completely? And then you get to make up your own story of how it got there. And the players, they don't get votes because they're only players. You're the DM, you make the decisions. They just do what you tell them. Monsters are now native to the island or to the island of Foreign within Islecross, off the northern coast of the continent of Wildemount. In a great cataclysm, city of Aeor that once levitated high in the sky came crashing down on the island, and several fragments of it have been mapped. Maybe more of these creatures in as yet unexplored parts of these islands. Um, and you could take them to your own homebrew world on a whim, and they could keep their same name or be renamed to map your setting. So, now, how might you reskin this? If you took it to your home world, and let's say that the group around your table are just like they're not they're not just fans of Critical Role, but they actually have contributed articles to the Critical Role wiki. If you have players like that, and you have created your own world, and you put something in there called an Aeorian Absorber, they're going to be like, but actually, that's not possible because your world doesn't touch on Aeor at all, so there's no way that these things could be in there. And you have my permission if they do that, just to reach across the table and slap them. Shut up, my game, my rules. Do what you're told. Uh, they they so if you want to put it somewhere else and you want to avoid the headache of dealing with whiny players, you can then change the name, keep the stat block, change the name, and then possibly play around with a little bit of mythology or lore or anything about it. So, um, it could be a mad wizard's cross between a displacer beast and a beholder. Or it could be some kind of, well, no, beholders spawn other beholders because of nightmares they have. So there's no way for a beholder to reproduce in any kind of biological sense. Um, I mean, unless of course you can create one. But classically, beholders spawn other beholders because of their own bad dreams. So a mad wizard may cross a displacer beast and a beholder, kind of like what we talked about in its appearance. Um, Perhaps instead of absorbing spell energy, every time the creature is hit, there's a 50% probability that it teleports like a displacer beast, and a 50% probability that a random eye ray effect from a beholder shoots out of that eye. So then instead of saying, hey, you hit me with fireball, so now there's a ray of fire coming back at you. Maybe you hit me with a fireball. Now I go and I consult the 10 different eye rays of a beholder, and I roll a 10-sided die, and ooh, disintegration ray. Ooh, necrotic ray. Ooh, sleep ray. and whatever just might come out of there. So you could do that. Then my love affair with all of the elemental quasi things from it. you could have this be some kind of strange creation of, um, you know, wizards on the elemental planes. And so maybe there's versions of these that come from the elemental plane of Earth, and that ray is like it like squirts acid or something. Um, Maybe they come from the plane of air and it shoots lightning. Um, uh, so on and so forth. So you could do those types of things with reskinning the monster. Um, astral uh, astral versions of this, maybe radiant damage, uh, something that comes out of the Shadowfell that deals necrotic damage. Yeah, who knows? Lots of different things that you could do with this. But that just did kind of tickle me when I thought about, ooh, yeah, random ira. Hmm. And then because it has that sort of morphology of the Displacer Beast, yeah, just give it a 50% chance that every time you hit it and you think you got it where you want it, bloop, it disappears and it shows up over there in another part of the battlefield, just like a Displacer Beast. All right. Well, I'm looking at the chat and I see no questions right now, so I'm going to go on into the wrap up. And if there are any questions after that, I will come back to those. Thank you all for stopping by this evening, and thank you for those of you that will be stopping by later in the week to check us out here on Monster Monday. I have been DM Gallibond. This has been our discussion of the Aeorian Absorber. Right here on this Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Gallibond, you can find not only the Monster Monday on Mondays, but on Sunday you can find our Walker of Waterdeep game, 2 p.m. Eastern. Thursdays, I do believe after 2 weeks of being interrupted by the holidays, I believe we're going to be back in action Thursday night, 8 p.m. for the Sword Coast Chronicles, and then Saturday evening at 7:30 p.m. is the Lost Mine of Original D&D. And that is going to do it for us this evening. There are no more questions. You can find content 7 days a week over on my YouTube channel. And if you really like everything that we're doing, which we appreciate you coming and hanging out, that's great. Love having the audience to be able to talk to. Um, we do have a Patreon where if you feel so inclined, you can go ahead and offer us a little bit of support so that as we go forward, we can do more things and make more cool stuff from DM Gallibond brought to you. And I'll close by the same way that I do every week, and I will remind you just to watch out for the monsters under the bed. Good night, everybody.